during the elections, but I was able to have an overview. And in a way, thank you. And what I will be doing this evening with regard to this topic, we'll have, of course, it's legal framework, so to speak, but it will also have a political dimension to it in view of how the majority party, which is the ANC, though it did not manage to get the plus 1%, they managed to reach 40 plus. And as you well know, and other parties and the new party, the MK, came in, and all these were partially part of the ANC initiative. Looking historically at the EFF, and then the most currently the MK, Mkonto Wesizwe Party, which was actually the military wing of the ANC. So the former president Jacob Zuma the ANC. So, as the ANC, the party must reaffirm its commitment to the national democratic revolution and to ensure that it remains central to the mission of the South African people and the democratic project that governs the country. And in this recourse, sorry, to this end, sorry for that, the Section 86 of the South African Constitution presents three broad options that might be, engaged with to ensure that there is a transitional government in place that will lead the country forward. One is a coalition government. Number two is a minority government, or what we would call the confidence and supply agreement. And the third would be the dissolution of National Assembly and holding new elections. So there are these two options at the moment that the country is facing. So I'll just now give a brief summary of the practicality of how this could be. First and foremost, following the results of the 2024 national and provincial elections, we have several pathways that will need to be considered to form a viable government. The African National Congress, or the ANC, is its 55th national conference. Establishment should be negotiated. So there is a white paper on that. And these have to be consistently applied in this manner. Firstly, there has to be a coalition agreement that sets back the renewal and transformation agenda of the ANC, and this would be like a marriage of convenience. And this would prioritize, or must prioritize, political expediency over long-term effects on the ANC party and on the country as a whole. Okay, so what would this mean in the context of votes? According to the perspective of the ruling party, the ANC, they don't feel that they should consider, for example, a marriage of convenience with the as for a coalition agreement. The important gains that have been made. According to the party, they believe that joining forces with either of these parties risks alienating large numbers of voters, seen it decline with of convenience, sorry, with these two parties, which are also really quite large parties at the moment. The other one would be the three options that I've mentioned, so they would remain viable so that the government, capable government could come in to lead the country effectively, aligned to the principles of what they would call the renewal project. So this would be, on a practical basis, that a coalition with the Democratic Alliance, okay, and the Inkatha Freedom Party, IFP. Number one. Number two would be a confidence and supply agreement with the DA or the Inkatha Freedom Party. And thirdly, would be either a government of national unity, all the parties in parliament, or those whose vote share exceeds the defined threshold. So they would have a defined threshold and unity government with all those parties as the third option. And they believe that serious consideration should be given as a party. They believe that serious consideration should be given a confidence and supply agreement with the DA and IFP. So they are preferring option 2 instead of coalitions because of the technical complications that might arise with that. So they say, well, point 2, we might go with this. And that's a confidence and supply agreement with the DA and IFP. So what would this mean? So it means that, firstly, a confidence and supply agreement refer to a formal arrangement with one or more parties, in which those parties commit to support the government in confidence motions, that is confidence, and to pass budgets in appropriation votes, and that's supply. So unlike a coalition, junior parties do not usually receive positions in cabinet and are free to vote independently on other legislations. So an agreement of this kind, in view of this, what I've talked about, would avoid, firstly, complexities and political risks of a coalition, while enabling the ANC, the current party with the majority, to form a government, a functioning government. So the ANC, the Democratic Party, and the IFP would achieve a majority nationally, as well as, for example, in Gauteng, which is one of the biggest provinces as well, the capitals, the biggest cities in South Africa, Gauteng province, KwaZulu-Natal as well, which has the majority population. So if extended to metros, for example, the metro cities, it would have further advantage of achieving a majority in Johannesburg, in Tshwane, in Ekurhuleni, eThekwini, and Nelson Mandela Bay. So this would, in fact, mean that the government, the ANC there, would provide them with a basis for a stable government, and this government would be led by the ANC, and then in governing together with the other parties in confidence and supply agreement, rather than a coalition, or rather, that the discussions that are ongoing in perspective of a government that will lead South Africa come from this year going forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for that wonderful input. I was supposed to introduce our analysts to the House. Let me just quickly do that. I kind of skip that. So Dr. Abat Bajirana is the coordinator, Center of Constructive Theology, University of KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa. You are welcome once again, sir. And yes, your submission it's been taking so much points to consideration. And now we will like to listen before we come back to you, Dr. Albert. We'd like to hear what Engineer Kenneth Eze would have to say concerning this topic. Oh yes, sorry. Sorry about this. I just come to my notice that Dr. Janet Munakam, I'm sorry if I am Nigerian, so it might be a little bit difficult to pronounce your name. Can you kindly help me with that, ma'am? She's here with us.
Yes, greetings everyone, and thank you so much for the very profound input Dr. just spoke. I'm actually based here in South Africa at Wits University, but also doing civil society work through the Diaspora Workers Network and the Women Human Rights Defenders Network. So we deployed our election observer mission as well in the just ended election, and we are so privileged and honored, humbled to actually partner with you. Thank you so much. And moving forward, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Janet. So were you with us at the beginning of the analysis, Dr. Albert?
I know a lot of it, the last part, because I was also busy finalizing our report here. My colleagues were waiting for it. So yeah, it's okay. No problem. I'll just catch up through the subsequent conversations. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am. And you're welcome once again to this. So, Engineer Kenneth, are you ready for us, sir?
Okay, thank you. Yes, let me just make add a few comments also from my end here. The issue about framing the legal framework or developing the legal framework for the anticipated coalition, for me, is a matter that should be of interest to all concerned stakeholders, all lovers of democracy, and the good people of the Republic of South Africa. This is because at the juncture that we are presently, and just like the previous analyst had rightly mentioned, Dr. Abbott, that it is very clear now that there is no singular party that was able to meet up with the constitutional requirements of single-handedly producing the required votes or gaining the required votes. And by that, I mean 50%. And that leaves everyone now to, do I say, a sudden compulsory marriage, what we call coalition, which must take place. The form of the coalition is what I believe now the political parties are now trying to find a way around it. ANC, where they're supposed to assess their general performance in the election, and now to begin to chart a discourse around the issue about coalition. I also listened to the leader of Patriotic Alliance, who is also one of the attracting bride, saying yesterday night that the ANC reached out and visited them. They had the meeting, and though the meeting did not turn into, they did not conclude, and according to him, he's still expecting particular and detailed. And from what I gathered from him, which was Options Alliance, he had said that the ANC was not too clear about what they actually want, and they, according to him, that they put forward the question, "Rich, are you presenting before us?" And by that I mean, what type of coalition are we actually going into? What forms? And if you listen to our first analyst, he made mention, he rolled out different forms of course for that to even explain them. So, and according to the Patriotic Alliance leader, he said in his word that the ANC could not come clearly on what they actually want. So, to go back and come up first, they must define the kind of union that they want. Is it a government of national unity? Is it a minority government? Is it a government of coalition? So 3 forms, according to him, that he mentioned yesterday, that according to him, it is until when ANC, which is now, is the one that visits, is the one that extends this olive branch of coalition to other political parties. So, it is when they are able to find a ground around that, then the Patriotic Alliance will now begin to discuss the terms and other things that centers around it. And so we are all aware that it is not the issue now about whether there's going to be a coalition. That has been settled. I think we heard a conversation around that, possibly the day before yesterday, and that was what was the center of discussion about the issue about coalition. But today, we are now, talking about how do we frame the legal framework that should shape this conversation. That is what I want our discussion to be. Actually, we're going to. That's what I think the Speak Out Africa initiative is actually putting forward on our table. We are no longer debating there's going to be a coalition. In fact, they have no choice. They have no alternative. Though they may still have a choice, because according to my understanding of the Constitution, if after 14 days there is no government comes up, the IEC, Independent Electoral Commission, will be mandated to run and conduct a fresh election within 90 days. But I'm very sure that the political parties will not want that. They will not want to start afresh again all over. So that them is a coalition. Then, and the conversations today before us is that first, should there be a legal framework? And that is the position of a Speak Out Africa initiative. We are already working at our press release, press statement will be out, which will make public ably. The Speak Out Africa initiative is providing leadership to mobilize and galvanize other civil society organizations, other independent actors of good governance to come up with a press statement. And the press statement is somehow similar to what we are discussing now. And that is to call on all the political parties, especially the major political parties, the ANC, Democratic Alliance, the IFP, and the Patriotic Alliance. And many analysts, many experts, predicted that the anticipated marriage is going to be among these ones, judging by their performances in the recently announced election. So the press conference that we are mobilized, not only Speak Out Africa, other including the partner organization, Dr. Janet is also involved. So by this night, or later tomorrow morning, we hope to release a formidable statement, which is going to be mandating the political parties to begin to form a national dialogue on the issue that are centered around a legal framework that will shape their conversation. And so the normal question someone will ask is, why do we need a legal framework? Why can't we just allow the politicians to just go into discussions and begin to come up with whatever and foist it on the good people of South Africans? It is because there are antecedents, there are history of some form of coalition that has taken place before now. And before I'll take us through that short history, let me also say that there are some signs that we have started seeing from some political leaders that makes us to become worried. That if we allow these political parties and politicians to just, in their own wisdom, and come up with a coalition, it may not be done in the interest of the good people of the Republic of South Africa. And by that, we are saying that as we speak, just a few days after the result was announced, some political leaders, some party leaders are already men should be reserved for their party if they'll be considering the coalition. We've heard some parties made mention of that they should reserve the position of Home Affairs for them. We've heard some parties talk that they are taking ministerial position for finance. And so these are people who are already speaking, but there are others that are not even speaking to the public. But among those, they are, caucus meeting, they're already, just telling for juicy position, lucrative positions. So that's to us and the development sector is worrisome. What should be driving conversation as we speak now should be the interest, the national interest of the people of South Africa. It should be how are we going to elevate the ordinary South Africans from poverty? How are we going to be able to close the gap of the unemployment? The pitiable situation of so many. So that should be what should drive the conversation. But unfortunately, surprisingly, of course, politicians are the same all over the world. What they are talking about is the lucrative position they will go into. So for us, we now saw a big need that the people, through the civil society organization, should now begin to present to these political actors, these parties, as they just stood around, as they scamper to perfect their coalition and political marriages among themselves. That please, you will not be doing that just for your interest. You should now begin to present to us. You must show us the legal framework that is going to guide that union. You can fair. Going by records, the implications of coalition government for South Africa citizens have been very significant. Do you understand? The historical context of coalition government in South Africa has experienced coalition government. Of course, we know this is not the first coalition. The history, there is already history, it has happened before. And for example, coalition government has happened in some municipalities with mixed results. Notably, so since 2016, municipal elections, many major cities like Johannesburg, Swane, and Nelson Mandela Bay have seen coalition government. And this coalitions have often been marked by instability, frequent changes in leadership, and challenges in decision-making, which have sometimes led to service delivery issues and governance paralysis. So, for example, the Johannesburg City Council has seen multiple mayors in a short span due to shifting coalition dynamics. This instability has had direct implications for citizens, often resulting in inconsistent service delivery and delays in infrastructure projects. Similarly, in Swane, coalition governments have struggled with internal conflict, impacting the city's administration and governance. So I have just shown us. So because there's a trajectory at the municipal level where coalition have taken place, and the people has been the one who has suffered for this. And to us, what we feel could have led to such thing is because things were not defined. The people of South Africa, we need to present a legal framework to this coalition so that they will have it, it will be a guide, it will be a roadmap. And so what we are trying to bring out today and is it's like a town hall meeting to harness and say, what should shape this conversation of coalition? How should the legal framework look like? Should it be about this position is going to mean one is not going to mean I'm taking on my affairs? No. Where are the people going to be placed in this discussion? Are the people going to politicians that we know? The people who as the last, whatever they come out, people should present a guide to these political parties and tell them in very specific terms and said, in your 1 year in office, in your 100 days in office, we're expecting load shedding to be a thing of the past. This is how you should go about this. We're expecting you to do this. We don't care about which party coalesce with the other party, whether it is ANC, DA, whether it is ANC, EFF, and IFP, whether it is ANC, PA, and EFF, whether it is MK Party and ANC. That is not what bothers the people. What bothers the people of South Africa is that we want South African to be alleviated from poverty at the end of the day. So whether you are going by minority government or you are going by government of national unity or you are going by a coalition government, what we are mindful of is the result, the impact. How will an ordinary Nigerian, an ordinary South Africans benefit from the government that is going to be in place? So at this point, I will yield the floor for that. So I think it should be a continuous conversation. We hope to continue this conversation. At the end of the thing, we want to come up with a drafting. We're already working to that, and come up with a draft of how the legal framework should look like. The content of this coalition. What and what should it be? So that it will be a guide. And not just that, the people will use that as a social contract. We hope up at the end of the day, with the people in the certain act to be empowered by their votes. So now we need to shade our differences and come together and work for the good of the people. That is the intention. That is the spirit of a legal framework. The legal framework will provide guidance, clear-cut policy, so that they don't do them. That will call them to order. And part of what we expect, the good people will submit papers, submit ideas, and we'll be able to combine all of them, compile it into a working document and present it to political parties within these 14 days, so that they will see it and know that it's not just about our own interest. The people are now alert and vigilant. They will not until the game we're driving at. Then a legal framework that will shape the coalition conversation. So that at the end, I will not be the one to suffer at the end of the day. Thank you once again as I yield the floor.
Thank you very much, Kenneth Eze, for your wonderful submission on the question, why do we need a legal framework? And yes, throughout the discussion, just a minute. Sorry. Sorry about that, yeah. Had with us now. He answered the question of why we need a legal framework. And the answer he gave was, it's for the national interest of the people of South Africa. Now, it's our party is no longer about the candidates. Now, it's for the interest of the people of South Africa. And I believe is speaking the mind of a whole lot of South Africans out there. So good, thank you. And did you Engineer Kenneth Eze and what Dr. Albert had said?
Before going into an agreement, at least you have to, because we say you should only work with those people whom you are sharing common goals, right? So before going into an agreement or any form of an agreement, at least you have to sit down and discuss on how best are you going to work on that, and at least also every party to at least contribute on what they are going to contribute towards the position they are going to possess.
Thank you very much, Mr. Upe Asedi from Malawi. Yes, I can remember that very well. And also, please, if you have any question, kindly drop it on the chat box. We will practically attend to it. And also, you can indicate by raising up your hand using the reaction button on the Zoom. Questions. And yes, are you still here with us, ma'am?
Yes, I'm still here. I'm still following as well, because I thought it's time I should also give others very profound input, very enlightening. I'm just a bit if we had to come up with a legal framework, and we have respected politicians like Thabo Mbeki, who in an interview that, because I was following pre-election interviews, so he actually participated in an interview on the eve of the general voting day. That was the main day on the 28th of May. And actually he captured my attention when he said the political problems require political solutions, not legal solutions. One. That said, I also attended another webinar that was organized by Frederick Naumann Foundation. That was in March. It was a public lecture by a former mayor of South Africa, of Johannesburg, Mpho Phalatse, in which she alluded to the shortfalls of getting into coalitions with that are non-binding. So for me, trying to weigh the two, I guess having participated in that particular webinar and having had to speak firsthand about their frustrations, being in office where you were in a coalition with a party or some parties that today they wake up and just feel like, I think we need to withdraw. We need to, we don't think we still need DA because she was representing DA. It was very problematic. She raised quite a number of issues that I guess if people had taken them very seriously, all politicians, I know because of the election fever, everyone was just like thinking they're gonna make it alone. So nobody bothered to take note of those views. So for me, I think it would be very important for us to also perhaps frame it. I know legal processes or policies might take quite long for people to actually agree to, because it will be another coalition talk within a coalition talk, and politicians are not patient. All they want to hear, for example, because everybody's now very excited and agitated to get there. There is an opportunity that they all never expected, set for the ruling party. So what I'm simply trying to say is that if we could weigh in between whose voices matter at the end of the day. We have former President Mbeki dismissing the entire idea of providing a regulatory framework for any coalition. And I'm just of the view that perhaps he made those particular sentiments with a view that the ANC was going to win with a majority. He never saw the ANC getting to this particular aspect. So it will be very great for us, perhaps maybe package it like more of some guidelines, people-centered guidelines, because the legal framing part of it, already we have one political party that President Mbeki raised in that particular interview. It's the voice he was representing his political party. So for us to be able to have our voices and our input, our intervention make sense at the end of the day, I guess we would need to just reframe or rephrase what exactly we are trying to do. Thank you so much. I think that's the most important part that I thought we should actually talk about. But of course, the issues that we raised on Monday, I'm so glad to hear some voices of communities coming on board and political parties beginning to open up their eyes, even if we know that it's going to be a superficial consultative process to ordinary community members or ordinary voters that supported them. But at least hopefully the message is going out to say a people-centered, coalition, not about the politicians, but for the entire country. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jeanette, for that wonderful, wonderful, wonderful input. Thank you very much. And I can see Ren Kilner, your hand is raised. Do you have a question or a submission to make?
I have a submission to make. Thank you. And I'd like to thank Janet for her contribution, because what she has said is incredibly important. From a coalition point of view, and it's not just the politicians, the politicians make has a massive impact from an administrative point of view, not just nationally, but also from a provincial point of view, and also down to municipal. As far as Mpopalatse, yes, it has a massive impact on a municipal point of view, and Kenneth spoke about it from a Johannesburg point of view, because the more unstable the political those coalitions are from a political point of view, the more unstable the administration is, and you cannot make any good decisions, and you cannot make meaningful changes and have service delivery on administrative level if the political coalition at the top is not stable. So you need to have level heads, and you need to have good level thinking from them, and then there needs to be good thinking, stable, and a stable, and it has to be from a legal framework point. What position do I want, and what portfolio do I want? It has to be, there has to be broad thinking, a point of view about what is good for the country, and who's the best for the position. And that has to be at the forefront of people's mind, because only then can, from an administrative point of view, can those things start filtering down. And you can only start putting the right administrative people in place and have proper stable administrative decisions being made with cohesive political thinking at the top. So you can't have people fighting about positions and fighting with one another about positions and those types of things at the top. I mean, you've got to think about it, about running a company from a cohesive point of view, because that's really what it is all about. And we've seen it, and we've seen it from a municipal point of view, and we really just got to think about that from a country point of view. So we really, from a legal framework point of view, we have to start putting those things in place. And part of the frustration point of view is that what we've seen from a Johannesburg point of view, if we just bring it down to that level, is that you have seen smaller, tiny political parties putting mayors in place that have got no voice, but you then don't have the people who've actually voted. They have no way of, then their voices are not heard. And they don't have, there's no way of them getting rid of these minor politicians that have been put in place, and that are suddenly making decisions for them, and that are looting coffers and making decisions that they don't have a say over. And that is something that that needs to be, in fact, taken care of. So people have spoken from a national point of view and a provincial point of view. And if we need to put a legal framework in place, we need to then put something in place that if something is not done properly, how do we then make sure that the people have an and if the people then have a voice to then go back and say, well, how do the national election how do we take care of that? And that's a dilemma that we sit with at a municipal level, at a provincial level, at a national level. So that's something in a sense that one has to take care of in all of this, so that politicians can't play games, make decisions in all of this, the people's voices get lost as a result of it. I hope, but so Mpo said it, Janet has said it, because it goes down whatever decisions are made from a political point of view actually filters down to administrative level, and it has to be stable.
Oh, wow, thank you very much, Rain Kilner, for that wonderful, wonderful submission from you. And yes, the chat box has been very, very busy, very busy. I can see like Ambassador Orugo, and is saying, well done, Mr. Kenneth Eze. So that's for you, Mr. Kenneth. And also, thank you very much, Rain. That's from Dr. Janet. Okay, indeed, was so service delivery. Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Janet. And yes, please, anybody have any question or any submission to make before we hand over to Dr. Albert to give us his parting shots? Any questions or submissions?
Sorry, Damla. I hope sorry, I couldn't find a way to raise my hand now. Just to quickly mention that I think on Monday I did allude to the fact, but anyway, thanks, Renee. That was so powerful. So on Monday, I think I spoke about a social compact that was kind of bottom up and people driven, which I was submitted to the powers that be by then, but they decided to ignore it. I guess it would be great to actually bring on board the African Monitor, who are actually the custodian of that particular kind of work, so that we could draw and build up from what already has been done, because we don't have that luxury of time to do that. We don't want to also begin from a perspective of academics, lawyers, just prescribing what we feel like this is supposed to be. Perhaps it would be great to revisit. I remember I even did a policy brief on that particular project. If we could pick up the key issues that came from the communities, from the citizens, great. That are
view as well. I think the Constitution provides a blueprint within which, or a framework within which the coalition should fund care of the people. There is a mandate for that, and so to the people. There are quite a couple of points that I think the fact that we have a party that has led, within the elections, that will still spearhead the coalitions in whichever form they want to have them. They definitely legally and constitutionally have the mandate to function according to specific principles. And for example, I'll just give just a few. Coalitions, for example, must be based on a common minimum program, which is the Citizens Charter that focuses on measurable targets for service delivery and development in communities. So most of these you'll hear they are based on community interests. So coalition partners must commit to shared values, stability, accountability, transparency, ethics, and integrity, community participation, good governance, respect for the Constitution and the rule of law, social justice, equity, human dignity, non-racialism, and non-sexism, and so on. Thirdly, the party that has got that is spearheading the coalitions should lead the coalition in a government that should reflect the will of the people, not the elite. Okay, dealing with only the elite, but it should incorporate everybody. The law should be amended. That is from the legal framework, to ensure that public administration and the civil service is insulated from coalition deal making and bargaining. So motions of no confidence should also not be abused. So the legalities must make sure that they take course on how the coalition will function beginning, as they were talking about to these jobs and so on and so forth. So coalition should be transparent and all the parties, whichever party leads the coalition, must ensure that they are engaged with community-based organizations, create service delivery forums, and independent candidates who work with them should be genuinely committed to stability, social justice, and ending, for example, issues like the continuous tenets of apartheid, colonialism in all their forms, and also to avoid divisive politics and seek not to organize politics along tribal lines, racial lines, and so on and so forth. That is keeping the sensitivities of the context that we are in, And also, the coalition should not endeavor or work against isolating other parties, because even the other smaller parties that are not forming coalition should be respected and should be part in one way or the other, whether through parliamentary dispensations and discussions or other forums. Make sure that they advance people's interests, because they were also voted by people who believe in their interests. So also they need to take into consideration the ideological and political differences of these other political parties to avoid red lines, to ensure that these coalitions have public interest, and demonstrate readiness to serve the people within a democratic space. And also to endeavor that they have the practicality or mechanisms in place to engage in conflict resolution, dispute resolution, so that they are able to address any issues that might arise at any time T before they can become problems. So yeah, I think in summary, that could be a guideline of a specific framework, constitutionally-led legal framework that would put people's interests up front, but still governing the powers that be that have been given the mandate to lead through this coalition framework. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Albert, for that wonderful, wonderful closing thoughts. So I'll give the floor to Engineer Kenneth Eze to give his closing thoughts too.
Thank you. I think I'm happy we all have the same converging points from Kenla, Dr. Janet, Dr. Herbert, and others in the chat. And that is that we will not just believe and just assume that these politicians are going to take decisions for our good, just like that, especially when it has to do with coalitions. And the reason why we are taking in that direction, no part of their way, their own ideology, and so many. And sometimes, if they are unable to reach a converging point, there's bound to be serious issues. And there is a fact that we all about that is that people always actions and inactions of the politicians or political parties will hit back at the people. And so the people on their own part of finding a way to kind of absorb the shock and to reduce the shock or whatever that is going to hit at them is now thinking of pushing forward for whether you call it a social contract or a legal framework. But why I'm not too comfortable with the issue about social contracts earlier that Dr. Janet was pushing forward for, because she had said legal framework, of course, we know takes a long time, and and I like our opinion to the fact that we are not just talking about a legal framework, an academic legal framework in quotes. No, we are talking about people-driven legal framework, not the academic framework that we all know, just putting something just for the purpose of writing a legal framework, bringing lawyers and writing. No, because when you talked about the issue about social contracts, we see that even the manifestos and the campaigns that these politicians ran prior to the elections is supposed to be a social contract. It's supposed to be a social contract. And so, but it will interest you to know. Please, can you off the person that is?
Kindly mute your mic.
You can mute the person from your end. You can mute the person from your end. Maybe you should mute. So like I said, so I was saying that the manifesto, the campaign promises is a non-social contract that if the politicians are actually, we are to trust them and they actually want to deliver and put people first, they will not even be a need for any other thing that will cause social framework or whatever. But of course, we are all witness to the fact that the politicians can tell you and make any promises to you just to win your votes. And after they've served their tenure, you see them come back again to still make the same promises. So that is to say, if manifesto and campaign promises, which is supposed to be a version of a social contract with the people, is not actually working as it should, I push strongly that we need a legal framework within the Constitution. Because when we say legal framework, what it simply means is that a citizen can now go to a court of competent jurisdiction to say, this coalition government, you signed this with the people of South Africans, and that is not what you are doing. And because of that, of course, because it's not involved legal ground. But of course, it's very rare that a citizen will approach any court and say that party ABC made a promise during campaign that they are going to stop load shedding. And today we now have load shedding. And because of that, the court should do this and do this. You don't understand. So we've even seen some African countries where a leader of a political party, when he enters, finds his way in government, will tell you that what he made with the people was just that it was not the one who made that promise, that it was his party. We have seen that even in Nigeria. You will see, they will tell you that the manifesto was not written by them, it was written by the party, and that he's not the one who made that promise. And some, they will tell you it was a political promise. That should have been enough for a social contract. So I think the people now should, begin to think beyond just the normal social contract and begin to consider the issue about legal framework very strongly, the issue about accountability, transparency, so that it will be a guide, so that no matter the differences that this coalition government is coming in, no matter the difference, because there are bound to be differences. There is no way. Let's suppose, for example, ANC and DA decide to form a coalition. Of course, you know the position in terms of international policy. The ANC, you know their position regarding Israel and the Gaza and the Hamas. You also know the position of DA regarding that. They have different positions. So now, can two work together unless they agree? So what happens when decisions want to be taken? Maybe South Africa want to take a decision at the level of International Criminal Courts. At least a coalition government between DA and ANC. What happens? You know that this singular matter alone can drag that policy, can drag the government down. So, and the people at the end of all these things will be at the receiving end. You will see hunger, you see people, you see policy being derailed, you will see administrative bottlenecks. So, because of what? Personal differences. So, but when we talk about a guideline, as Dr. Albert put it, within the Constitution, then we know that this one is a no-go area. These are South Africans. This is what they want. So irrespective of our differences, like the president said, we must converge. We must come together to make a decision about our unemployment. Irrespective of our differences, we must come together to make a decision about our immigration. Irrespective of, so that is what legal agreement. And in a place where they cease not to be doing that, the citizen can be able to approach a court of competent jurisdiction and demand that their steps be retraced and say, no, we have a social contract and you are binded by it and you do that. So that is only for me. I opine, I believe the politician will at least have some level of fear for the citizens as against always having their way whenever they want it. As I close, and of course, I like the aspect that one of the analysts also made mention of, and that is when this is not happening, what should be the immediate measure? Of course, the immediate measure is not to the person will not be removed again. So these are things I think this conversation should be pushed forward to a higher level and to a wider participation. Thanks to Dr. Janet, maybe the African Monitor and some other persons, for this to be a national conversation and begin to look at it. What should the people of South Africa present that should shape the conversation about legal framework, so that as they move around and they establish a coalition government, as they are before the swearing in of the new coalition government, the people of the South Africans, through working with the civil society organizations and all the stakeholders, will be able to present to the incoming government and say, this is South Africa speaking. So despite and irrespective of your differences that may arise, which we know will definitely arise, even we know that in the family, the husband and wife, they do have disagreement. But you cannot have a disagreement now and maybe a school fees of your children you're supposed to pay. You don't say because your wife did not give you the money, I'm not going to pay it, so I'm going to punish. No, because we already have a social contract that irrespective of what is happening between us, we must pay our students' school fees. We must do this. That is what we are talking about. So we hope to push this conversation forward until we have it, because at the end, the people of South Africa should be the center point, should be what matters, and not the other way around. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much for Engineer Kenneth Eze for that very powerful closing thoughts. Thank you, sir. So there's been a lot of discussion going on the chat box, and we will be closing many moments from now. But before then, let's quickly attend to this. A comment from Stephen Mami, and he said, this legal framework is necessary. A coalition government offers a chance for supporters of other parties to be represented in government. When voters believe smaller parties might form a part of the government and might have a chance of political power, they may be more likely to vote for a party they really feel represents them, rather than just going for the popular one. So this is definitely dragged, this definitely dragged the ANC into coalition, just that the manner at which they want their voices to be heard is the problem. You cannot decide on which capacity to serve if you are doing it for the interest of all. Yes. The other advantage to a coalition government is that a wider range of opinions are involved. Policies are more likely to be debated with various points of views considered before policies implemented. Therefore, I feel it's a good idea, really. But my question is, will it remedy the problems faced by South Africans? That is from Stephen Mami. And yes, Dr. Janet's reply, spot on, Stephen. Giving on board small parties will certainly instill confidence and diverse choices in future. And most importantly, the issue of voter apathy. Dr. Janet also further said, thank you very much for your profound input, Dr. Albert. Guiding principles are. Then Stephen Mami went ahead to, this is for Engineer Kenneth Eze. Another issue with coalition is that the manifestos presented pre-election are rendered mostly irrelevant and unrealistic, and they are often the basis of for earning people's votes in the party place. So let's note this again. Except with reference to a nation like SA, coalition generally takes a short-term point of view, as they cannot count on being re-elected in the same form again. The biggest risk with a coalition government is that they are unstable and can trundle along with achieving very much as political partners may fundamentally disagree with each other ideally. Thank you very much, Engineer Kenneth, for the remarkable closing remark. Okay, this is from Dr. Janet. So thank you everyone for joining this space. And yes, you can, to know more about Speaker Africa, to check what we'll do, just log on to our website, www.speakerafricainitiative.org. You can check us out on Twitter, Speaker Africa Initiative, on LinkedIn too, Speaker Africa Initiative, and on Facebook. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining in. Till next time we see again, once we call, kindly reply. Thank you very much all. Bye for now.
Thank you, everyone, and thanks for the invite once again.
Dr. Janet. Thank you,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Speak Out Africa team. You people are doing a great job. Thank you, Renken, for your wonderful. We actually push this works forward. Thank you, Pechix. This is a discussion that is never exhausted. Thank you, Dr. Frank Tete. Thank you, sir. We're happy to have you. Would have also liked to have your view, but maybe next time. Thank you, sir.